Ladies, I need you to stop what you're doing for just a moment, because what I'm about to share with you today could genuinely change everything. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm not here to give you false hope. I'm here because there is something happening to millions of women across this country. Women just like you. Women who are smart, beautiful, accomplished and full of life. And yet they are quietly suffering through something that nobody talks about at dinner tables, at church or even at the doctor's office. I'm talking about hair loss, thinning hair, that slow, heartbreaking moment when you look in the mirror and realize your ponytail is half the size it used to be, when you run your fingers through your hair and more comes out than stays in, when you look at old photographs of yourself and barely recognize the woman with the full, thick, gorgeous hair smiling back at you. If you are a woman over 60 or even over 50 and you have been quietly grieving the loss of your hair, I want you to know something right now. You are not alone. This is not your fault. And there is something you can do about it starting today. Because here's what the medical establishment doesn't always tell you. Hair loss in women over 60 is not simply about getting older. It is not inevitable. It is not permanent. And the solution is not 1,000 treatment or a prescription with a list of side effects as long as your arm. The solution, as researchers are now discovering, may be sitting right there in your kitchen pantry in a can. Yes, a can. Ordinary, affordable, accessible canned foods that contain specific nutrients your aging hair follicles are desperately starving for, and most women have no idea. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what is happening inside your body. Exactly which canned foods are backed by real science to reverse hair thinning, and exactly how to build a simple daily routine that could have you seeing thicker, stronger, more vibrant hair within weeks. Let's do this together. Now, before we dive in, I want you to know that everything I'm sharing with you today is grounded in real research. We're talking about studies published in journals like the Journal of Investigative Dermatology, Nutrients, Dermatology and Therapy, and research conducted at institutions including Harvard Medical School, Johns Hopkins University, the University of California, and the Cleveland Clinic. These aren't fringe theories. These are findings from dermatologists, endocrinologists, and nutritional scientists who have spent years studying exactly why women's hair changes as they age and what can actually be done about it from the inside out. And what's truly remarkable is that the answer keeps pointing back to nutrition, specifically to nutrients that are shockingly affordable, widely available, and hiding in plain sight in the canned food aisle of every grocery store in America. Doctors and researchers across the country are beginning to understand that hair follicles are among the most nutritionally demanding structures in the entire human body. They need a constant, rich supply of very specific vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and anti-inflammatory compounds just to function normally. And when those nutrients are missing, which they increasingly are in aging women, the follicles go into a kind of hibernation. They miniaturize. They produce thinner and thinner strands, and eventually they stop producing altogether. But here's the hopeful part, and please really hear this. Follicles that have gone into hibernation can in many cases be woken back up. With the right nutritional support delivered consistently over time, real regrowth and real thickening is possible. So let's talk about what's actually going on inside your body first, and then we'll get into the canned foods themselves. Ladies, let's have a real conversation about what aging does to a woman's body, specifically in relation to hair. Because when you understand the why, the solution suddenly makes so much more sense. Starting around the age of 50 and accelerating through your 60s and 70s, several things happen simultaneously in a woman's body that create what scientists call a perfect storm for hair loss. First, estrogen drops. Estrogen is the hormone that has essentially been protecting your hair your entire adult life. It extends what's called the anagen phase, the growth phase of each hair follicle. When estrogen falls after menopause, follicles spend less time growing and more time resting or shedding. The result is hair that grows more slowly, breaks more easily, and falls out faster than it's being replaced. Second, something called DHT, dihydrotestosterone, becomes more influential in your body. DHT is an androgen, a male-type hormone, and even though women have very small amounts of it, after menopause it becomes proportionally stronger relative to your declining estrogen. DHT literally shrinks hair follicles. It wraps around the follicle like a fist and gradually squeezes it smaller and smaller until the hairs it produces become fine, fragile, and eventually invisible. Third, and this is something most people never hear about, your scalp circulation begins to decline. Think of your scalp like a garden. The hair follicles are the plants and blood flow is the irrigation system. As we age, microarculation to the scalp decreases. The irrigation pipes get narrower. Less blood reaches the follicles. And since blood carries oxygen, iron, protein, and every other nutrient your follicles need to produce thick, healthy strands, reduced circulation means the garden starts to dry out. The plants get smaller. Some of them stop growing altogether. Fourth, chronic low-grade inflammation, something scientists call inflammaging, becomes a major issue after 60. Your immune system, which is supposed to protect you, starts sending inflammatory signals to your hair follicles, essentially treating them as a low priority, even flagging them as a problem area. This inflammation disrupts the normal hair growth cycle and can cause follicles to enter a premature resting phase. And fifth, nutrient absorption decreases dramatically with age. Your stomach produces less acid. Your intestines become less efficient. Even if you're eating reasonably well, you may be absorbing significantly less of the nutrients your follicles need. It's like trying to water a garden with a hose that has 100 tiny holes in it. Most of the water never reaches the roots. Now here's where the canned foods come in, and this is where it gets really exciting. Certain canned foods contain extraordinarily high concentrations of the exact nutrients that address every single one of these 5 problems. They deliver bioavailable protein, specific minerals that block DHT, circulation-boosting compounds, powerful anti-inflammatories, and nutrients that actually improve absorption. And because they're canned, cooked at high heat, and sealed in liquid, many of their nutrients become more bioavailable, not less. In some cases, canning actually makes the nutrients easier for your aging digestive system to absorb, nature working in your favor. So let's count them down. Starting from number 5 and building our way up to the single most powerful canned food for women's hair that I've ever come across in my research. Number 5, canned pumpkin. That's right, plain pure canned pumpkin, not pumpkin pie filling, not a flavored mix, just simple unsweetened pureed pumpkin in a can. And ladies, this one is about to surprise you. Canned pumpkin is one of the richest plant-based sources of beta-carotene on the planet. 1 single cup of canned pumpkin contains over 700% of your recommended daily intake of vitamin A in the form of beta-carotene. Now, why does that matter for your hair? Because vitamin A is responsible for the production of sebum, the natural oil your scalp produces to keep hair moisturized, lubricated, and protected at the root. When vitamin A is low, the scalp becomes dry and flaky, follicles become inflamed, and the root structure weakens dramatically. You end up with hair that breaks at the shaft and falls at the root simultaneously. A study published in the journal Skin Appendage Disorders in 2017 found a significant correlation between vitamin A deficiency and hair shedding in older women, and noted that correcting the deficiency, even through dietary sources, produced measurable improvements in hair density within 12 weeks. But the story doesn't end with vitamin A. Canned pumpkin is also loaded with zinc, a mineral that acts like a gatekeeper at the hair follicle, regulating which proteins enter and ensuring that the follicle's growth cycle runs properly. Zinc also inhibits the enzyme 5-alpha reductase, which is the very enzyme that converts testosterone into DHT, the follicle shrinking hormone we talked about earlier. So canned pumpkin is essentially a natural gentle DHT blocker without the side effects of pharmaceutical alternatives, without the cost. And then there's the fiber in canned pumpkin, which feeds your gut microbiome. And emerging research, including work out of the University of California, is now connecting gut health directly to scalp health through what scientists call the gut-skin-hair axis. A healthier gut means less systemic inflammation, which means happier, more productive hair follicles. How to use it? Aim for 2 to 3 tablespoons of plain canned pumpkin daily. Stir it into oatmeal in the morning, blend it into a smoothie, mix it into yogurt or add it to soups and stews. It has a mild, slightly sweet, earthy flavour that blends beautifully with almost anything. And here's a tip. Always buy the can labelled 100% pure pumpkin with one single ingredient. The moment you see sugar, spices or syrup added, you lose most of the therapeutic benefit. Number 4, canned sardines. Now I know some of you just made a face. Stay with me, because if there is one canned food that dermatologists and nutritional researchers consistently point to as a powerhouse for aging women's hair, it is the humble, misunderstood, wildly underappreciated sardine. Canned sardines are consumed bones and all, and that is actually the key. The soft edible bones in sardines are extraordinarily rich in calcium and phosphorus, which support the protein matrix that makes up each individual hair strand. But more importantly, sardines are one of the most concentrated dietary sources of omega-3 fatty acids in the entire food supply, specifically EPA and DHA, the long-chain marine omega-3 sats that human hair follicles respond to most powerfully. Here's how it works. Biologically, omega-3 fatty acids are incorporated directly into the cell membranes of your hair follicle cells, making those membranes more fluid, more responsive, and more efficient at absorbing nutrients from the bloodstream. They also powerfully reduce scalp inflammation, that inflammaging process that chokes follicles into dormancy. A landmark study published in the Journal of Cosmetic Dermatology in 2015 followed women for 6 months on an omega-3 and omega-6 supplementation protocol and found significant reductions in hair reloss and significant increases in hair diameter, with 90% of participants reporting a notable improvement in hair density. But sardines have another trick up their sleeve. They are one of the very best dietary sources of vitamin D3, and this is crucial for women over 60. Vitamin D deficiency is almost epidemic in older women, and researchers at Harvard Medical School have identified vitamin D receptors in hair follicle cells, meaning your follicles literally need vitamin D to function. When those receptors go unsatisfied, follicles enter premature tagon, the resting and shedding phase. Sardines deliver D3 in its most bioavailable animal source form straight to your cells. And the selenium in sardines, selenium is a trace mineral that acts as an antioxidant inside the follicle, protecting developing hairs from oxidative damage, the kind of cellular rust that accumulates faster as we age. How to use them? 2 to 3 servings of canned sardines per week is your target. Choose sardines packed in olive oil for an added boost of healthy fats, or in spring water if you prefer a lighter option. Mash them on whole grain toast with a little lemon juice and black pepper. Add them to a simple green salad with capers and cucumber. Stir them into a tomato-based pasta sauce where they dissolve completely and you'd never know they were there. Start with 1 serving a week if you're new to them and let your palate adjust. The nutritional payoff is extraordinary. Number 3. Canned lentils. Now we're building serious momentum, ladies, and canned lentils are where things get truly exciting for your hair. Lentils are one of nature's most complete hair-building foods. And the canned version is perfectly cooked, easy to digest and ready to use in minutes. Here's what makes lentils so remarkable. A single cup of canned lentils delivers approximately 18 grams of plant protein, and protein is the literal building block of hair. Each strand is made of a protein called keratin, and if your diet is low in protein, which is extremely common in women over 60 who have reduced appetites and reduced protein absorption, your body will simply prioritize protein for critical organs like your heart and liver, and your hair follicles will be the last in line. The result is diffuse thinning across the entire scalp, but it's not just the protein. Lentils are extraordinarily rich in iron, specifically non-heme iron, which when consumed alongside vitamin C is absorbed very efficiently. Iron is essential because it carries oxygen to your hair follicle cells via your red blood cells. The follicle is one of the fastest dividing cell structures in your body, It needs constant oxygen and constant energy. Iron deficiency is one of the most common nutritional drivers of hair loss in women over 50, and it's massively underdiagnosed because women's iron levels are tested after menopause when doctors assume the problem has resolved. It hasn't. The need for iron for cellular function, including follicle function, remains high throughout life. A study published in the Journal of Korean Medical Science found that women with hair loss had significantly lower serum ferritin levels than control groups, and that iron repletion through diet produced measurable improvements in hair density over a 6-month period. Lentils also deliver folate, a B vitamin absolutely critical for cell division, meaning it directly supports the rapid cellular turnover inside each active hair follicle. And they contain biotin precursors, zinc and manganese, a constellation of minerals that work together to maintain the structural integrity of each growing hair strand. How to use them? 1 cup of canned lentils 3 to 4 times per week is your goal. Rinse them first to reduce sodium. Always check the label and choose low sodium versions where possible. Add them to soups, curries, stews and grain bowls. Make a simple lentil salad with chopped vegetables and olive oil, or blend them into a smooth, creamy dip seasoned with garlic and lemon. Lentils have an earthy, satisfying flavour and a beautifully creamy texture when warmed. And here's a pro tip. Eat them with a small glass of orange juice or add red bell pepper to your meal to maximise iron absorption through the vitamin C connection. Number 2, canned oysters. Ladies, we are getting close to number 1, and I promise you number 1 is something you use all the time and never thought to think about twice. But first let's talk about canned oysters, because these are, without any exaggeration, one of the most nutritionally dense foods on the planet for aging women's hair. Canned oysters are the single most concentrated dietary source of zinc in the entire food supply. 3 ounces of canned oysters contain more zinc than any other food, period. And we already talked about what zinc does. It blocks the conversion of testosterone to DHT. It regulates the hair follicle growth cycle, and it protects the oil glands surrounding each follicle from becoming inflamed and dysfunctional. But here's what most people don't know. Zinc has to be present in very specific concentrations inside the follicle for a process called hair matrix cell proliferation to occur. That's the process by which new hair cells are created at the base of the follicle and pushed upward, eventually forming the visible hair strand. Without adequate zinc, this process slows down dramatically. Hair grows more slowly, strands emerge thinner, and the growth cycle shortens, meaning hair spends less time growing and more time shedding. Research published in Annals of Dermatology confirmed that patients with significant hair loss had substantially lower serum zinc levels than healthy controls, and that dietary zinc correction produced notable improvements in hair parameters within 16 weeks. But canned oysters don't stop at zinc. They are also a fantastic source of vitamin B12, a vitamin that becomes extraordinarily difficult to absorb after 60 because the stomach produces less intrinsic factor, the compound needed for B12 uptake. B12 is needed for the formation of red blood cells which carry oxygen to hair follicles. Low B12 means low oxygen delivery to follicles, which means sluggish, weak hair growth. The B12 in oysters is highly bioavailable and comes packaged with coactors that support absorption in a way that isolated supplements often don't replicate as effectively. Oysters also supply copper, a trace mineral that works in partnership with iron to produce hemoglobin, and that also plays a direct role in melanin production, the pigment that gives hair its colour. Many women over 60 notice not just thinning, but greying accelerating simultaneously. Copper deficiency is frequently a contributing factor. How to use them? 1 can of smoked or plain canned oysters once or twice per week is sufficient given their nutrient density. Serve them on whole grain crackers with a squeeze of lemon and a light drizzle of hot sauce if you enjoy a little heat. Add them to a chowder or seafood pasta, or eat them straight from the can. They have a rich, briny, savoury flavour with a tender texture that many people find deeply satisfying once they get used to it. If the flavour is very strong for you at first, try the smoked variety. It has a milder, more approachable taste profile. Number 1, canned wild salmon. Ladies, here it is. The number one canned food for women's hair, and I think deep down some of you may have guessed it, but I guarantee you haven't heard the full story of just how extraordinary this food is for aging women's hair specifically, and why the research around it is so compelling. Okay, wild salmon, specifically pink or sockeye salmon in the can, is the single most complete hair nutrition package available in any affordable shelf-stable food on the market. It is the hair follicle's best friend, and it operates on every single one of the 5 aging hair problems we discussed at the beginning of this video simultaneously. Let's walk through it. Protein first. A 3½ ounce serving of canned wild salmon delivers approximately 25 grams of complete protein containing all 9 essential amino acids, including cysteine and methionine, which are the 2 sulfur-containing amino acids that form the disulfide bonds that give keratin, your hair's structural protein, its strength, its elasticity, and its resistance to breakage. Without adequate cysteine and methionine specifically, your hair will grow weak, dull and brittle, even if you're taking other supplements. Then omega-3s, canned wild salmon, is extraordinarily rich in EPA and DHA, even more so than sardines, gram for gram, depending on the species. These omega-3s simultaneously reduce scalp inflammation, improve follicle membrane fluidity, and have been shown in research from the University of California, San Diego, to actually upregulate the genes responsible for the hair growth phase at a molecular level. A study published in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology demonstrated that omega-3 fatty acid metabolites can directly stimulate hair follicle cycling, pushing dormant follicles back into the active growth phase. Then vitamin D3 again in its most bioavailable animal source form, then selenium, then B vitamins including B6 and B12, then potassium and magnesium, which support the electrical signaling in scalp nerve endings that regulate follicle activity, and calcium from the soft edible bones, just like sardines. If you choose a brand where the bones are included and soft enough to eat, a comprehensive review published in Dermatology and Therapy in 2019 identified omega-3 fatty acids, complete protein, vitamin D and antioxidants as the 4 pillars of nutritional hair restoration in aging women, and canned wild salmon delivers all 4 in a single serving. Think of canned pumpkin as the anti-inflammatory guardian, reducing scalp inflammation and providing the vitamin A your follicles need to stay lubricated and healthy. Canned sardines are your circulation and D3 team, flooding your scalp with oxygen-rich blood flow and activating the vitamin D receptors inside your follicles. Canned lentils are your building block supplies, laying down the protein, iron and folate your body needs to actually construct new hair cells. Canned oysters are the hormonal defense and oxygen crew, blocking DHT, building red blood cells and protecting follicle pigmentation with copper and zinc. And canned wild salmon is the master restorer, delivering everything simultaneously while fighting oxidative aging at the cellular level. Let's talk numbers for a moment, because I think this is important. Women across America are spending between $300 and $1,500 a month on hair loss treatments, prescription minoxidil, laser caps, PRP injections, clinical supplements, salon treatments, and many of them are getting partial results at best while dealing with side effects like scalp irritation, unwanted facial hair, or dizziness. In the comments below, I want to hear from you. Tell me, where are you watching from? How old are you? And how long have you been dealing with hair thinning? Have you tried any of these foods before? Which one are you going to add to your routine first? Your story matters, your experience matters, and your comment might be the exact thing that encourages another woman who is watching this video feeling alone and discouraged. So please share. And if you know a woman, a friend, a sister, a mother, a neighbor who has been quietly struggling with thinning hair and has no idea that something this simple might help her, please share this video with her today. That one act of kindness could change everything for someone you love. You are not too old. You are not past hope. Your hair can grow again. And it starts today with a can opener, a little knowledge, and the decision to believe that your best days are still ahead of